I started the night by counting the hums. 1 for the big Siemens MLOCR waking up, low and steady like a refrigerator deciding to confess. 2 for the DIOSS feeder belts, whispering rubber on steel. 3 for the overhead fixtures, the high mosquito whine I taught everyone to hear. In here the bays wear sodium, the stations wear fluorescent, the building hums in 2 keys and pretends it's 1. When the room hits that chorus I can breathe. A system that loud has a pulse. A pulse means rules. Rules mean I'm not guessing. The Mail Recovery Center is a city with walls. Long aisles of gaylords, giant corrugated totes stacked like apartment blocks, each stenciled with somebody's almost story, undeliverable. No such number. Insufficient address. The air is damp paper and hot glue. Motors butter it with a clean electric tang. Foam earplugs dull the worst edges. Nitrile gloves turn my hands into squeaky ghosts. A monitor wall watches every aisle. Convex mirrors make a second map in the glass. Darlene lives in the reflections. She slid a laminated card across my station. Her eyes never left the screens. Night protocols, she said. The lamination fogged at the corners like an old badge. Courier type. No logo. Rule number 1. 2:11 a.m. Set radio to AM 1040 kHz. Volume 6. Blank carrier to fill channel. Rule number 2. Do not read aloud addresses written in blue ink. Rule number 3. Do not speak discontinued addresses. An address is a path, saying it opens the route. Rule number 4. No hand-to-hand through secured doors. Use pass-through trays. Direct visitors to front office. She slid a second laminate face down, gray with a thin red stripe. Visitor control. Index to Rules 4 and 5. The orange placard has the full text, she said. You don't need it until you do. I laughed before I meant to. It came out wrong, like a hiccup. She finally looked at me over her glasses. Her eyes had the color and temperature of a stapler. You'll stop laughing, she said. They all do. Who's they? I asked. She pushed a roll of evidence tape toward me. 1 finger only. People who used to work here. There's comfort in the petty cruelties of a machine, the rejects, the misreads, the envelopes that skid off the belt and gasp when they fall. I love making the wrong thing right, even if right is just a sticker. RTS. A tidy scan in a database no one will thank me for. My father died because an ambulance went to the wrong peach tree. The city is lousy with peach trees. Street, road, avenue, industrial boulevard. Like the city keeps trying to write the same word until it looks right. I got a job where rotes can be pinned to the table with a staple. I clipped on my badge. Flicked the start key. The first mouthful of envelopes disappeared into the rollers. The feed lights went green. Then a flicker of orange. The camera block calibrating. Software deciding which scratches were letters and which were lies. The air warmed instantly. Ozone sharpening like an onion's bite. The floor thrummed under my boots. At 11:23, a gaylord the size of a coffin thumped beside my station. Someone had written on the side, MRC Sweep, pre-1960. I cut the plastic straps. The smell that came out wasn't rot. It was time. Old gum. Library paste. Basement Sunday school programs. The top layer was a quilt of airmail stripes and fountain pen flourishes. I palmed a pack of nitrile gloves. The old glue eats skin. Open under camera, Darlene said. She can see everything in the reflection map. I swung the overhead camera arm. The red LED winked down. The first envelopes were easy. No names, no house numbers, only grandma or to anyone there. The OCR choked. I fed the belches into manual indexing. Tap, tap, tap. Fingers working. Mind wandering. Midnight tastes different. Concrete sweating through wax. No windows, only clocks. At 12:37, I hit the first blue ink outlier. Sharp Catholic school handwriting. The envelope stained the color of smoke. No return address. A stamp of an airplane doing something optimistic. The zip field, 5 perfect zeros. My scalp prickled like I leaned too close to a CRT. I set it aside. I don't read blue ink out loud. I don't even mouth it. It's a stupid rule. But when a place this big writes something stupid, what they mean is, we paid for the lesson. The machine hummed, the belt hissed. A line printer coughed out labels in little sneezes. My headset radio sat fat and silent, tuned to a dead patch where nothing lives. 211 would come when it wanted. "Do not get cute," Darlene said. She had seen me looking too long. Her typing never stopped. She spoke from the side of her mouth. "Blue is for bleed," so the old guy used to say. "What old guy?" She let silence do the paperwork. I cracked a dozen more. A tax refund from 1997, a letter to a jail that doesn't exist, a Polaroid of a dog in a bonnet, no address at all. Only be good. I indexed, stamped, sealed, sent each small failure on. The room grew warm, then not. I was halfway to believing in a nothing night when the belts stuttered. A hiccup. Envelopes slapped back into one another. The camera block flashed white. A single envelope cleared the guide rail. It pirouetted onto my tray. It shouldn't have cleared that lip. Nothing clears that lip unless you put it there. Airmail stock. Striped edges faded to old candy. Postmark year 1958. The blue ink had not faded. It had sunk. The handwriting slanted. Practiced. Desk trained. Under the camera, the envelope looked sharper, like the lens had decided to try harder. 2. The girl on Winslow Street. Zip 0000. My mouth moved to make a shape. I shut it. The room felt like a lung waiting for air. Rule number 2 stared from the laminate. Behind me, the DIOSS dropped a stack. The soft whomp usually calms me. It didn't. I smelled coppery tang of a motor arcing. Ozone braided with library dust. My tongue went numb at the edges. "Don't," Darlene said. Too late for a don't. I wasn't doing, I was holding. The envelope was cool through the glove. Cool like a bottle from the gas station fridge. A tiny static pop snapped. The screen image jumped, then settled. The OCR preview pane hallucinated a field, a T10, and blinked. As if waiting for me to breathe a name. I didn't. I put the envelope down. Careful, like lowering a baby into a crib. 1040 shouldn't be blank at night, that's the point. At 211, the facilities patch steals the channel. The horns bridge the floor frequency. The room floods. On the dot? Always on the dot. The wall clock ticked. 211. The overhead speakers clicked alive. The hush of an empty frequency poured in. I reached, turned the radio to AM 1040, set the volume to 6. The blank carrier filled the room. The envelope breathed. Edges shimmered like heat over asphalt. The striped border tried to wag. Other mail puffed, dozens of throats taking a breath. I slid the laminate card under it. The rules stared up through the paper. Blue, as a bruise not yet earned. To the girl on Winslow Street. Zip 0000. I didn't say it, I didn't even think it in a voice. I just read. And the reading felt like standing on a street you cannot see. The preview pane didn't let go. It blinked, stalled, then filled the line by itself. A TTN, Noah Tran. I froze. My fingers weren't on the keys. The OCR doesn't improvise. It reads pixels, not minds. Yet there it was, black courier on the workstation screen, like the system had pulled my name from Marrow and typed it polite. I tapped escape. The field stuck. I rolled the trackball. Dead. Cursor blinked on my name, waiting for confirmation of delivery. Behind me, the DIOSS feeder fell into a nervous rhythm. Tick, 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 pause, tick, tick. Not jam loud, but relay loud. The sound of something deciding too often. Overhead, the fluorescents trembled in their sockets. Ballast wine climbed a half step. Settled like a headache practicing. I shut my mouth tight. Teeth on tongue. I hadn't spoken the address. But the part of me that still honors playground dares whispered. Thinking counts. Darlene swiveled a single notch in her chair. I caught her in the reflection. Glasses bright with the monitor wall. Face blank enough to stamp. You just cut a path, she said. Flat. Like reading out a balance due. I didn't. Doesn't matter. You looked. You let the system hear it through you. The envelope on my tray hadn't moved. But the blue ink shimmered like oil under shop light. The color had pressure now, as if my hand on it would dent the air. You're telling me I opened, what, a file? Her fingers kept typing. A route. They don't die when the signs do. They sleep until somebody mouths them in the wrong room. Her monitor pinged. She hissed a curse, small, private, not aimed at anyone breathing. You're lucky it didn't speak back, she added. This time. My badge lanyard tugged at my neck. Sweat made cold lace under the plastic. The floor's hum shifted from balance to bird, like a breaker half trips, then thinks better of it. The taste in my mouth went penny copper over ozone. The rules card still sat under my left wrist, glossy, dumb. Rule number 3. Do not speak discontinued addresses. An address is a path, saying it opens the route. On my screen my name bled. Letters thickened pixel by pixel until they stopped looking printed. They started looking written. Blue, which the system does not use. I yanked the mouse. The cursor twitched a millimeter. Died. The little USB light winked like a patient humoring a nurse. The fluorescence gasped dry when the contactors cycled. The DIOSS relays clicked in sympathy. Tick, 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 teeth in winter. I'm logging it, I said. What we say when we want an act to be over. Anomaly, pending review, closed ticket. Log away. Darlene's tone could have filed its own paperwork, and do not get cute with the blue. I wasn't. You were thinking it. She didn't turn. Thinking counts. I shoved my chair back. The squeal ran the aisles, came back thin, emptied of me. Forms make messes smaller. Forms keep the room from sticking to your hands. I told myself I would print the incident sheet. Move on. When I turned back, the envelope wasn't where I left it. It was dead center on the rules card. Waiting, like a mouth waiting for someone to speak to it. The envelope sat dead center on the rules, like it owned them. I didn't touch it. I slid my chair sideways. Let the belts keep spitting mail. Tried to breathe through the penny on the tongue taste the ozone had left behind. Across the aisle, the DIOSS hiccuped. Coughed a carton onto the gravity ramp. A thunk too heavy for letters, too light for hardware. The label was sun-bleached, scarred. Barcodes scabbed by failed scans. Undeliverable stickers layered like scales. Someone had written photo album in marker, ink bleeding into cardboard like it regretted being the messenger. Open under camera, Darlene said. Her 4x3 grid of feeds glowed overhead. Domes, convex mirrors, the floor stitched in reflection. She lives inside that map. I cut the tape, folded back the flaps. Heat puffed out. Faint, electrical. Like a laptop breathing after you close it. Inside, a leather album the color of old coffee. 2 bricks of Polaroids, rubber banded until the bands gave up. The album's brass frame showed only a rectangle of sun-faded paper. A name had lived there, then wandered off. The leather stuck to my glove as I lifted it, warm, sweaty, like a hand that had been holding itself. I cracked it. The hinges sighed dust. Peel and stick pages, clear film to trap your life inside. Dry them first, Darlene said. If they're tacky, the dust will eat them. The tabletop dryer clicked alive. Heating element, breathing plastic, sweet headache, fan whine rising, falling, sick of itself. I peeled the first page. Family on a lawn, 60s maybe. Church clothes. Knobby elbows, the kind of sun we don't make anymore. Typed label beneath Robbie's first Easter. Adhesive yellowed into nicotine. I fed the corner into the dryer. Heat fluttered the image. When I pulled it back, the caption's edges went soft. Then they weren't Robbie anymore. They were Robert Anthony Delk. 1971. Missing. Same typeface, different words. Like the label had found a better memory under heat. Hey, I said. Do the next, Darlene said. Next was a picnic. Ants on rind, baby with one sock like a dare. August by the lake exhaled into Camila Hernandez. Age 22 last seen. The facts smudged, still rehearsing. Glitch, I asked, buying my hands time. Do the next. I ran a dozen. The images stayed stubborn. Kids, dogs, dresses needing another decade. But the captions molted. Brad's new bike exhaled into Bradley Michaels. Missing from Norcross. Our house turned into an address I knew. Police blotter crawl. Names combed through the part of my brain that only wakes when news runs out of adjectives. Plastic smell went sticky sweet. Coated the back of my throat. My nitrile squeaked. Every lift of the film made a kiss sound. Pages wanting it to mean something. Why would someone relabel their life like this? I asked. Who sends us an album that edits itself? You're not seeing edits. Her reflection didn't move. You're seeing what wants to be named. Named as what? As what it can hitch a ride on. I hate when she talks like a priest stapled to a service bulletin. We could match some of these, run the names, ping databases, find a contact. Half of this looks like, stop, no breath, just a stamp. Don't place what you can't collect with your own hands. These are people. Tonight they're labels. Her eyes never left the wall. Don't give them a door. It should have settled me, it didn't. I watched my father die on a map. Dispatch dot bouncing Peachtree to Peachtree like a moth that can't pick a porch light. If I had been in the room, I'd have stapled the rote to the dispatcher's forehead. Here I am with a stapler that matters. And the rule is, don't staple. I fed another page, heat wafted, a toddler in a kiddie pool, a sister leaning over the rim. Summer 1985 bubbled into unknown female, 5 to 7, last seen at Lake Lanier. My jaw ground. We can't just send this back to rot. We can and we will. We could call. We could open 10 doors we can't close. Her typing stopped one beat. You want to pay that postage? The dryer's drum thunked. A Polaroid skated out like a playing card. Spun once. Landed image down. Cream white back. Nothing written. I flipped it with a nail. No person in the frame. Not quite nothing. Wallpaper maybe. A chair's shadow. But no one you could love. The margin began to raise letters. Like welts. CAROL. The C smeared to an O. The O stuttered to a D. The line shook clean. Reset. Next time it wrote Noah. Just that. Standing in the white like it had been waiting for a lane. Heat pressed my face like a palm. The floor hummed under my boots. I set the Polaroid down careful, explosive careful. Reached for another. Couple in front of a brick ranch. First house breathed into Alan Pruitt, 34, missing. The curb number etched itself along the photo. Chalk from a small, exact ghost. Cross-country trip became Dana Lee, 19. Last seen I-85 South. Quit cataloging it in your head, Darlene said, which told me what my face was doing. Some of these match open cases. I could. You want to feel helpful. Flat as a stamp. I want you to stay employed and alive. Beat. Do not put a person to a label you cannot collect with your own hands. Locked door logic. Still right. I made myself stack the dried pages. Plastic clung and let go. Sticky mouth noise. The hot smell wrapped my tongue. The room drew close. Somewhere a beacon pulsed its slow, inhuman blink. The last Polaroid lay alone. Image down. Gloss curled a hair from heat like skin puckers when it scabs. I told myself I didn't care. I told myself I would bag it blank. Sign the form. Move on. I flipped it. No picture. Only white. Not blank. Cleaner than blank. The kind of white you find in labs, in lies. The bottom margin bled letters, like a wound remembering you. They came crisp, no stutter, blue as the envelope ink. Return to sender, Noah Tran. The dryer clicked off by itself. The air went suddenly cold. The dryer died with a polite little click. The kind appliances use when they've decided they're done helping. Heat left my face. Cold came fast like a meat locker door opening. I slid the white Polaroid into an evidence sleeve. Sealed it flat with a thumb. My name on the bottom margin stared through the plastic like it could fog it. Over the stations, fluorescents held their steady headache. Out by the dock, the sodium lamps bruised the air amber. A bay clock ticked hard. 2:10. I watched its red second hand tremble. Then hop. The face went bright with 2:11 like the time belonged to it, and not to the rest of the building. In my headset, AM 1040's hush thickened. The ceiling speakers stole the channel on cue, pouring carrier into the room like plaster into a mold. 1040 shouldn't be empty sky in Atlanta. That's why we use it. Paper around my station swelled again. Just the little humid inhale sheets give when the room changes its mind. The blue ink envelope's candy stripes gave a cautious wag. Downline, the DIOSS did something rare. It spat a crate. Not a USPS tub. A low wooden box with rope handles riding the gravity ramp like it had paid for the view. It thumped the roller with a clop that sounded wrong in a room built of plastic and steel. Winslow, stenciled on the lid in black gone gray. Under camera, Darlene said. She didn't have to look. Her wall of domes, mirrors, feeds flickered across the monitors. She lives inside that map. The lid didn't need a knife. Hinges broke their paint with a dry snap. Inside, paper. Maps and cards and something between the two. Packed tight enough to be one object. The smell came out like weather. Linen sharp map stock. Iron gall ink, bitter. Paste remembering fingers. And under all of it a basement vein that remembers rivers. I slid the box beneath the camera arm. Edges rasped my nitrile. The stack whispered sssst as I eased it loose. Paper scales in a barrel. Each piece was hand-cut board, typed label. A narrow strip of map pasted true. Route 5 Dunwoody, discontinued. East Point RFD, retired. Old Peachtree Road consolidated. Not just maps. Veins. Grease pencil, red pencil. Tiny hatch marks counting a carrier's breath. I lifted one. The paste ridge met my glove like a healed cut. Typed in courier along the margin, if undeliverable, return to station. Someone had added in old blue that sank. Or to Winslow, I didn't say it. Saying opens. I let my eyes do the walking. The stack had a heart. Warmer toward the middle, like a hand had stayed there and kept staying. Cards rasped one another, a lizard sound. Already knew the helix wind I hadn't told this room about. Halfway down I hit the fresh thing. Not new. Awake. Board flat, corners clean. Map strip modern. Our fonts, our widths. But the typewriter label hadn't learned that trick. Route. Winslow. Discontinued. No number. No quadrant. Just a decision. Across the margin, slashed in that same blue. Delivered to Noah at my street. Exact. The directional everyone forgets. The unit, the zip +4 nobody loves but me. Cold, stitched across my scalp, the board stuck to my glove. Static. Or paste remembering. When it let go it made a tongue-off tooth sound that embarrassed the air. Darlene, I said. My voice belonged to the headset, not my mouth. It has. I know what it has. She turned that measured inch. Stapler eyes on me. You cut a path, it can cut back. I held the card at arm's length, like it might climb up my sleeve. My name wasn't on the board, only the address. That felt worse. A route doesn't need your name to find your door. The radio hush grew rougher, like sand in the white. Paper around us rose. Let go. The envelope's border wagged once. Polite. I slid the Winslow board into an evidence sleeve. Plastic crackled. It fought the fit, then gave. The label sat under LED, letters indented deep enough to catch a nail. I sealed it. Across the aisle the conveyor jerked, reversed half an inch like a spooked animal, then pretended it hadn't flinched. The lid said Winslow. Now my apartment had set it back. I looked at the rest of the stack. Old streets, retired lines. For a heartbeat, every strip leaned the same direction. The whole room with a current. It wasn't pointing at me. It was pointing downline. Toward the maintenance hatch. Chewed gum color. Where the belts sometimes swallow what they shouldn't. The paper scales whispered. The PA carried the blank carrier. The bay clock still loved 2:11. I knew what was coming. Even before the belts opened their throat and took something they weren't supposed to. The belts took it like a snake swallowing a rabbit. Not a jam, not a drop, just gone. Like a trick tablecloth leaving plates if the magician had student loans. I knew better. I went anyway. Don't, Darlene said, stamp flat, not expecting to win. She jerked her chin at the LOTO board. I did the penance I could. Scrawled on the sign-in, entering loop, bay C, retrieval. Clipped a red tag to my harness for the auditor I'll never meet. I didn't throw the disconnect. At 2:11, the system defeats interlocks. E-stops rebound. PLCS wake hot before your nerve does. The room takes offense. Darlene stayed on the camera wall as my spotter. It half counted. Plant policy suspends lockouts at 2:11. I stepped over the yellow line that only lawyers respect. The hatch downline was chewed gum color, dust and human skin ground together. I torqued the cam latch with the T-handle. The hinge confessed in a small dry squeal. A sheet of cold air spilled up my sleeves. Not HVAC, mineral cold, wet vein cold. Threaded with ozone bite. The kind that happens when a DC brush arcs and the air forgets its manners. The hair on my wrist stood up under the nitrile. It wanted daylight. The PA carried blank carrier. My headset whispered the same C. The fluorescence held steady. The sodium lamps bruised the dock amber. The bay clock refused to leave 211 alone. I ducked through. The world changed texture. Behind the belts is a different city. Ribbed decking. Hard shadows. Underbellies of machines throwing heat like black dogs. 5 yards upright. Then a crawl under a drive shaft. A guard that will scalp you without meaning to. A row of motor cans warm as animals in a barn. My knees remembered the route. Nights when the lines swallowed pens, badge clips, a wall at once that made a man cry. Paper whisper followed me. Sst. A congregation before the hymn. I hit the drop gate, peered through mesh. Usually the loop is just a dead run, a cul-de-sac for shame. Tonight the loop didn't look like a loop. It looked like wind. The chute's canvas bellied inward. Rubber rollers ticked in place, not forward, not back, just ticking. The mouth of the chute drew air down. Dust aligned itself. Every mote on rails. I felt it in my teeth first. A pressure change. Altitude begging for a name. Tongue went flat, nose crackled dry, then wet. The cold wasn't temperature anymore. It was a direction. On hands and knees I muscled the access panel. Slid down the ladder. Rungs clammy, beaded with condensation. The deeper I went, the more the building's thrum gave up. Turned into something older. A low, wet sound like a ventilated cave. The loop spit me into a bay. One car size. No reason to be there. Every reason not to. A maintenance bulb on a pigtail flickered. Once. Twice. Then decided it was a lighthouse. In strobes I saw what the belts feed when they get spooked. Envelopes. Hundreds. Pinned in the airflow. Hovering. Striped borders shivering like gills. The wind had shape. A slow helix. You could have hung a rail on it. Things rode it because shape is stronger than choice. Paste lines had a smell. Sharp. Papery. Under that, metallic, wrong. Ozone bit into my sinuses until my eyes watered. Okay, I told nobody. Which is who this room belongs to. Not a loop. In the center, the air wasn't empty. It was thick. A clear twist like heat over asphalt. Except the chill could file your teeth. The route cards at my hip rasped their sleeves. Sst. Fish in a net. Sinking with the helix. Paper waiting for this wind all its life. I made the dumb choice on purpose. The blue ink envelope, the Winslow one, was in my pocket. I don't remember pocketing it, but there it was, cool through the glove, candy stripes vibrating under my thumb. If the loop wanted strays, let it chew the one that had been chewing me. I'm just testing flow, I said, which makes anything a procedure. I held the envelope at the mouth of the wind. It tugged like a polite dog. I let go. It didn't fly. It recognized. It found a lane the way a leaf finds water. Slid into it like it had paid a toll. It went down. The wind carried it the way a throat carries a word. My gut did a hot, embarrassed oh. The part of me that believes in rules knew exactly what I'd done. You don't put things back on paths once you've cut the path open. That's how you get a route where you used to have a room. The pressure shifted. The bulb steadied. White, not fluorescent. Every hovering envelope twitched, a school of minnows bracing for the turn. The helix cinched. The cold leaned. The bay walls stopped being walls. They became sides like I was standing in an organ pipe. At the far end where the moon pinched itself into a line, something opened. Not much. Just enough. A rectangle in the dark. A mouth made of night. It didn't glow, it showed. Paint scabbed off wood. The pale suggestion of a vestibule. The edge of a corkboard with curled flyers no one tore down. In the steadied light I read the plaque nailed crooked. Winslow Station. Discontinued. Function, accumulation, reemission. The words weren't printed. They pressed into my head. Like a station stamp leaving a bruise you can feel from the other side. I put my hand on the jam that wasn't a jam. Through the glove, metal tasted of storm and ozone. The wind breathed in against my palm. I breathed out. The way you do with doors that aren't for you. The wind met my glove and my glove squeaked back. Sweat inside the nitrile, sticking to my knuckles. The jam tasted of storm and battery through the plastic when I leaned on it. The maintenance bulb behind me kept its wrong white steadiness. The kind of light that makes dentists rich. On the inhale, the door that wasn't widened just enough to admit a bad idea and still feel righteous about it. I stepped to the edge. Looked in. Winslow Station was built by someone who loved wood more than people. Dark counter. Wired glass window. Pigeonholes rising to the ceiling like a pipe organ tuned to silence. The varnish had cured into a smell you could chew. Sweet and sour at once. Piano in a church air. The room was cool without temperature. The kind of cool that remembers hands. Dust hung in neat sheets. As if someone had mopped the air and forgot the bucket. A corkboard held notices where thumbtacks bled brown halos. Corners curled like old leaves. A brass desk bell sat on the counter. Stem worn bright by ghosts. When I palmed it, my glove squeaked. The squeak embarrassed both of us. Something moved in the racks, furniture first, then not. The young woman in postal blue, wool that never learned sweat, hair pinned, no cap, where a face should be, the impression of one. Cheekbones under fog, a mouth suggested, no eyes yet. Only dimples where eyes would root. Her hands worked without hurry, taking letters from a canvas sack, filing by sound. Not the sound of paper, the sound of names traveling from far rooms, shouted, sobbed, muttered into callers. She tilted her head, finding stations on a knob, then slid each letter where the wanting matched the slot. The sack coughed envelopes like a gutter after a storm remembers to drain. Above the racks, onion skin trembled under tape. Typewriter teeth had bitten deep enough to ghost themselves into 3 sheets. Service complaint, 1984. Misroute Old Paces Ferry Road. Delay 9 minutes. 3 fatalities. Corrective action, consolidate. Do not speak, discontinued. The tape cracked in the draft. Paper chewed dryly, trying to lift and being told no. Old Paces Ferry, not Peachtree. Different family, same church. Atlanta keeps its hazards in plurals. Rule number 3, put weight on my ribs. Do not speak discontinued addresses. An address is a path. Saying it opens the route, so I didn't speak to the route wearing a dress. She moved along brass boxes, glass front pigeonholes with dials, thumb dulled to satin. Numbers that would make sense if you were born here. Each time her fingers brushed a dial, it spun a short combination. The latch didn't open. It woke. A letter went in, satisfied. Who are you filing for? I asked. Voice low enough to count as thought. The station answered by deepening the varnish in my mouth, the way a theater swallows a whisper. Bottom row, a slot with a crooked numeral, a scrap taped under glass. Blue ink hand, Catholic school slant. Number 13, the girl on Winslow Street. No name, just the debt. The canvas bag coughed again. She took a fist of blue, all addressed in that same bruise blue. 2, the girl on Winsdrow's row. Ink sunk like color into bone. She listened. Fed them into number 13. One by one. Ritual older than the building. Perfectly willing to learn the building's shape. My palm went slick inside the glove. I wiped it on my shirt. Got machine room for my trouble. Dust, oil, hot glue ghost. Far away, sodium lamps bruised the bays. Fluorescent sat steady. Ballast whining mosquito in my ear. Headset kept its shell C hush. The PA held it. The room wanted something. The helix tugged the hair on my wrists. A thought felt nearly finished and kept its teeth off the last word. Don't, I told myself. Not don't talk, don't complete. My eyes did what my mouth wasn't allowed. Scratched names, type labels taped over, pencil notes faint as guilt, hold for week. Remittance, inquest. Mrs. P, call first. The girl's not face tipped toward me. Like inside the fog there wanted to be eyes. On the counter, under the stamp block, a small corkboard leaned. Claim stubs pinned with brass tacks. Ghosted rectangles where names lived long enough to leave. One impression ran deep enough to read with your fingers. Kellner Sarah, 1987. Pending. I touched it. Nitrile kissed varnish. Glove heat sweetened the air until my stomach thought of sugar. The girl paused over the canvas mouth. The room took a sound from far away. A long-distance hum shaped like searching. She turned to number 13. The dial spun itself. The door gave a selfish click. A letter slid to the lip, not pushed, not thrown. Presented. A patient's arm for a cuff. Blue script before the words. Careful pen. No wasted commas. The stamp ring caught the light. Postmark circle clean, ink eager. The year 1984. It kissed the back of my throat. I didn't want to read the name. My mouth had already made space. Rule number 2. Rule number 3. Waiting like wet steps, the letters arranged anyway. 2. Gwynlyn Trunn. My mother's name, before marriage, before she carried mine. The diacritics were right. Nobody gets them right in Atlanta unless they eat at your table. The blue had the quiet of confident hands. The postmark had more. October. Day smudged. Time, 2:11 p.m., not a.m. They keep both halves of the hour. Somewhere in the racks a lock dialed itself to a stop. Metal answered metal. A voice I knew when it was younger, passed through a dirty screen. Dad trying the syllables of Peachtree. Twice wrong. Once right. A metronome learning a different time. A life shortening 9 minutes at a desk. The letter to my mother balanced on the lip of number 13. Exactly between filed and found. Waiting for a voice to finish the route. Nitrile kissed brass, glove made that shameful suck. The station leaned, wood smell rose, heat turned it sweet. Rule number 3 put its hand on my shoulder. I can't. I told nobody, which included the room. My breath fogged a yes on the wired glass anyway. From deeper in the station a brass slot clacked shut. A key turned without hands. The racks answered each other like pipes. Paper scales hissed back, purpose in it. I kept my mouth shut, my hands off the name. The letter didn't move. It waited. To see whether I was going to become a root. I let my hands slide off the brass. Let the letter hang. A diver studying the water. The bulb kept its wrong white steady. The helix in the air changed key, like it had decided to wait me out. Out, Darlene said. Blade flat. Not loud. Not up for debate. I backed through the wind's throat. Boots remembered concrete. Sodium bruise over the dock stayed amber. Fluorescents over the stations kept their clean migraine. The headset whispered hush. The PA borrowed it at 2:11, like always. The floor had arranged a lesson. Darlene already had a steel cart in front of my station. Binders stacked neat, banker's boxes, dot matrix printer on top, purring like a hive. Hot ribbon and carbon colored the air metallic. Pennies melted slow. Sign the withdrawal, she said. Flipped a clipboard toward me. I signed. She didn't explain. The room did. On Winslow nights the MRC borrows inspection adjacent protocol. Bag, tag, stamp, regret. The printer squealed, spat a header. Incident report. Tractor feed tearing along perforations. Form after form marched into my hands. Top binder, EMS printouts stapled to complaints. A red call, chest pain, trace hopping routes like a skipping record. Peachtree Road, Peachtree Street, Old Peachtree Road Northeast back again. Margin note pressed deep, delay 9 minutes. 3 code blacks, stamped at a cruel slant, undeliverable. Rubber stamp beneath, see rule number 3. Rideshare receipts. Mispins to Old Peachtree Court, fares adjusted, a drone trace. Paused midair, resumed, battery 87%, no reason. Stamped both, undeliverable. I flipped faster, glove left damp ovals on sleeves, paper hissed against plastic, resentful and alive. A carbon set from 1984, onion skin thin, typewriter teeth bled through 3 pages. Misroute Old Paces Ferry Road, delay 9 minutes, 3 fatalities. Corrective action sheet beneath carried a stamp so deep it debossed the folder. Consolidate routes. Do not speak discontinued. In the corner, label maker read, archived by Winslow. The printer kept its metronome. Chad stuck to my wrists with static. White moths. Say it with me, Darlene murmured. Chapel cadence. Locker room truth. Do not put a person to a label you cannot collect with your own hands. I didn't say it. The forms did. Evidence box. A ziploc of keys. Tagged driver never found. Another with a cracked phone. Screen eternally trying. 3:02 a.m. calling. Mom. A campus PR printout. Freshman last seen waiting near Old Peachtree Road. JPEG noisy enough to make the eyes slide off. A thinner binder. Tabbed visitors after hours. Rule number 5. Pre-highlighted warning direct to front office. Call security. Do not provide information. Margin in sharper pen. If dripping or smells of river, no admittance. Different haunting. Same family. I kept turning pages until my pulse synced to the printers. The need to fix lit and died and lit again inside my teeth. A brush arcing where the voltage is wrong. Darlene rolled a stamp toward me. Wood handle polished by tired hands. Backward rubber read do not name. It smelled of citrus solvent. And surrender. These are what fixing buys, she said. Eyes on the monitor wall. 12 convex bubbles. A camera mosaic. She lives in mirrors like a cat owns windows. The printer hiccuped. Chewed out one last line. Incident, misdelivery, address spoken. Then stalled at the end of its ribbon. In the quiet, the building's bass came back. Siemens breathing even. Belts purring. Ballast mosquito at the edge of thought. Air dried my tongue. Then wet it again. The way storms think. Then the room added a new sound it had been waiting to need. A papery crackle from row C. I turned. The Gaylord, with spray-painted 13, was smoking. Not fire smoke. Paper smoke. Thin, white-gray, sweet with glue, like someone left the laminator on. The plume unrolled in ribbons. Spelling nothing, until it learned how. Bring her home. Letters formed where smoke refused to go, held for 3 breaths, then pulled apart. A thought swatted. Found later in laundry. Darlene didn't move. Her hands rested on the dead printer, like holding a sleeping animal so it won't startle at thunder. You're not going to, I started. Her glance was a closed door. We don't read requests, we log them. I looked anyway, because I'm slow where it matters. The Gaylord breathed again, the bee sketching itself like a threat and a hug at once. The carrier in my ear clicked, as if a mic opened on a line older than the building. Down the aisle something small landed on the ramp with a polite thump. Not a letter, not a tub, a parcel. Wrong weight. Brown paper, cotton string no one uses. Because machines eat string and scream later. On its face, a label had already learned to look like my handwriting. The parcel slid polite down the ramp. Brown paper, cotton string, suicide for machinery. The label wore my name in a hand that looked like mine after 12 hours. Angles softened, pressure gone sideways. The way bones get tired. Darlene's jaw worked once, twice. Under camera, I hauled it onto the mat. Paper rasped dry as a throat. When the blade kissed the seam, the box exhaled a cool that didn't belong here. Rain breath. Mineral, green, the smell that walks ahead of storms. Out by the dock, sodium light bruised darker. The roll-up door thumped its tracks. Over the stations, fluorescents held their migraine. Inside, a black field notebook with cracked vinyl, a stack of letters banded so tight they sighed when I lifted them. Notebook stamped silver, EMS, field, half polished by hands, half by grief. The dried band cracked under my thumb. The book fell open to the page that already knew me. Mom's work hand, not recipes. Field script, fast, vertical. Confident enough to skip vowels and fix it later. Cross streets drummed the grid. Old Peachtree, no. Tree Street, no. Tree Road Northeast, yes. Underlined twice. Circled. In the margin, 211. The numbers looked right the way tombstones look right. The top letter wore Catholic school blue. Addressed to the girl on Winslow Street. Return corner carried my mother's full name, in Vietnamese only family uses. No stamp. No postmark, flap never sealed. Close it, Darlene said. Soft, like the room had ears. Log and close. She tapped a macro. Rule number 5 breach, 211. Banner went red, auto-filed to nowhere. This hour eats alarms. Down the hall, the service elevator dinged itself alive. No one called it. Doors parted on the breath of a basement that had learned weather. Car empty, except for a drip. 3 knuckles tapped the security door, not frantic, not a fist. 3 times. The rhythm uniforms used to be let through posted places. Next to the glass, a placard glowed dull orange. Rule number 5, visitors after hours. Direct to front office, call security, do not provide information. Darlene didn't look up. Rule 5, she said. Point him to the office, call it in, don't give names. I went anyway, because I'm exactly the hire the rules are written for. The wired glass made a story of the man outside, postal cap from a year that liked wool. Brim dripping measured dark, jacket the color of yesterday's sky. He didn't look at me first. He checked with the room, like a dog checks with a house before a person. He raised his index, wrote on fog his breath made, WINs, backward. Knuckles touched the metal again. Gentler. Looking for my girl, he said. Wire turned his voice into rain on tape. They keep her mail, I need her letters. Front office, I said, uniform reflex. We'll call security. He smiled, the kind of smile that belonged to warmth and didn't fit him anymore. I'm a carrier. Not brag. Not plea. Family. Sometimes you gotta put it in the hand. Behind me, the parcel lay open, storm breath cooling into paper. The unsent letter from my mother brightened its edges like white about to get a job. The EMS notebook lifted a page with static, showed me a note I didn't want. If dispatch says Old Peach, ask which. Below it, pressed so hard the page bruised, they don't know. The man's cap dripped again. Drops landed as coins that didn't spread. He leaned close, fogged the glass, traced the L he hadn't finished. Front office, I tried again, softer, like tone could be procedure. He watched me decide. Bring her home, he said. Same shape the smoke had made over Gaylord 13. My name lived in the sentence without ink. Darlene stood. Chair didn't squeak, she didn't reach for me. She stamped words onto the room. Do not open that door. I held up the parcel. Notebook. Letter. His almost smile twitched like old thread. He tipped his cap, showed the clean pale ring. Rain never touched it. She wrote that one, he said, not asking. A mother always writes the hard ones. He looked past me, toward the hatch where belts forget factory and remember station. Air tugged shy, my helix remembering itself. Rule 5, Darlene said again, purple ink on her fingertips. Direct. Do not deliver. I slid my thumb under the letter. 2, the girl on Winslow Street, flap never sealed. Maybe mom meant to. Maybe the world meant for her not to. I can run it, the man said, not pleading, a route offering. You're dead, I said. Because not saying it felt worse. Some routes don't mind what you are. He tipped the brim, we keep it moving. The maglock chirped, one sad peep, the PA swallowed it. Security doesn't come at 2:11. The building keeps that hour for itself. I broke rule 4, I broke rule 5. The bolt pulled like a ready tooth. Air rolled in, wet wool, old leather, machine oil loved by coats. He didn't step inside, he held his spot, like there were marks only he could see. I held out the letter, his glove brushed mine, not freezer cold, basement cool. The temperature of rooms that never learned noon. He slid it into his bag, nodded to nobody human, half-turned like his feet knew the next 10 blocks. He paused, hand hovered, reached past the letter, lifted the black notebook. Also this, he said, you'll need your mother's map if you plan to walk a street that isn't there. I'm not. I started, you are, he said, not unkind. Some deliveries require a relative. 2 knuckles tapped the vinyl. Knock knock. The way you call into a familiar kitchen. Blood opens certain boxes. Darlene didn't touch me, didn't need to. You stepped through, she said it's yours to close. The storm put its mouth to the dock, blew. The PA's hush found a note. Held it. Paper along the belts rose and fell like fish surfacing. The wrong bay clock loved 2:11 like a swear word you only say in church. I cradled the field notebook. Felt graphite, coffee, ambulance in the spine. The letter wasn't mine anymore. It had gotten small in his bag, story-sized, portable. Okay, I said. Heard the yes hiding in it. I'll take it in. He nodded. Hat off now. For respect, for graves. The clean felt ring kept its clean. He put his palm to the dark where hallway forgot factory and remembered station. The air turned. The helix picked up its work, like it had only been on break. I tucked the notebook under my arm, felt my mother's pencil marks through vinyl like braille. The storm smell thickened. Wet concrete, green edge. Darlene's breath went in, out, held. The Rule 5 placard gave one more tired orange blink. Quit trying to help. I didn't say the street, I walked toward it, and the station opened its mouth. The station swallowed the warehouse's bad light and made its own. Amber. Honey thick, varnish warmed by hands. Behind me, sodium sulked bruise yellow. Over the workstations, fluorescent stayed sharp and honest. The PA kept feeding me blank carrier. I stepped over the sill. The air didn't get colder, just more particular. Basement cool, rain a few rooms over. Under my arm, the field notebook warmed. Mom's palm already there through cracked vinyl. Pencil ridges under plastic. Old Peachtree. No, Petrie Street, no, Petrie Road northeast. Yes, the circle dented deep enough to live in. To my right, pigeonholes climbed like an organ. Bottom row, crooked number, taped scrap. Number 13. The girl on Winslow Street, the door thumbs with ajar, lip waiting. I pulled another reply from the parcel. Unsent. To the girl on Winslow Street. Return corner, Gwynlyn Trun. Diacritics right. Only family gets them right. In my ear only, headset pressed close, carrier thickening like a throat. Mom's voice threaded in, clinic soft. The room didn't hear, the station only felt me obey. Don't rush, she said. Yellow light voice. Not red, we're gonna be neat. I didn't answer. The station held posture like a patient waiting. Checklist, she said. Think it. 3 knocks, 13 back. The delivery door sat left of the racks. Paint layered clotted thick. My knuckles knew stubborn apartments in Atlanta. 3 knocks. Knock. Knock, knock. Not loud, not small. Correct. The wood took the sound, gave it back with weight. Good, Mom said. Static combed her syllables. Place. I slid the letter into 13. Blue ink vanished under brass. Paper met shadow with a humid kiss. 13, she said. Feet together, small, count. I backed away, heels whispering old boards. 1, 2. The brass bell twitched, remembered something. 3, 4. Varnish sweetened, tasted like stamp glue and pine. At 8, the enamel chime woke, round, cracked face. Sound braided of iron and days, it climbed rafters, folded itself back down. 9, 10. Boot heels found grooves of repetition. 11, 12, 13. Hold, Mom said. Let her come, don't call. From the rack she stepped, postal blue dress hair pinned, at her not face suggestion pressed forward, cheekbones first, mouth shallow, envelope tilted deeper in 13. Air smoothed, rippled, gathered. Eyebrow found place. Nose learned itself, hollows where seeing wanted root. The chime told again, softer. The postmark I'd seen had whispered 2:11 p.m. They keep both halves. Good girl, Mom said. Not to me. We're late, not lost. The knot face angled toward me, listening, shoulders shed a thin weight. She reached through the slot, took my mother's letter, pressed it to her chest, like a book loved twice already. Door, Mom said. Half turn. Don't trespass. I put my hand on the knob, not cold. Commitment, half turn. Latch answered like a knee quitting hurt in a pew. Crack showed a porch. Not this building. Mail slot, wet steps, night spread across 3 decades. I didn't need to step through. The act of not completing is its own completion. The city likes doors close to closed. Below the floor, pressure eased. The helix uncoiled. Somewhere far in gridland, a siren took the right Peachtree first try. A drone skipped a wind that wasn't. Dispatch dots marched instead of dancing. Close, Mom said. Clinic again. Back neat. I let the latch kiss the strike. Wood settled with the sound of decision. The air folded itself, put itself away. The girl, closer to girl now, letter held, stepped backward into slots. Did what staff do. Vanish without leaving. My hand shook, proved it was mine. I set the notebook on the counter, pressed cover shut. Vinyl bowed warmth into my palm. For half a second, I was a boy in a hospital hallway, learning the price of the wrong street. The station let me go. Not relief. Trust. Out, Mom said. Then the carrier thinned. Good baby, go home. I stepped backward over the threshold. Warehouse light poured across the sill. Sodium sulked at the dock. Fluorescents hummed their migraine. The helix stayed where I'd left it. The wrong bay clock slid to 2:12. Concrete under my boots returned to dumb and serious. For one heartbeat the building balanced, belts purring, glue and ozone disagreeing politely. My shoulders forgot to live up near my ears. Then the Siemens camera block winked. The little thermal printer woke, a cricket. Paper crept out. One slip, then two. Feed motor found a rhythm. Scree, white ribbon across the mat. Top line, font that only thinks it helps. Return to sender, Noah Tran. Another, same, date, crawled forward each slip. Tomorrow, day after, day after. The time field refused, until it did. 2:11 a.m. I looked down the row. Every station's thermal practiced. White tails made pale grass. Swaying in a breeze the building swore it didn't have. The PA kept its hush. The dock doors held the storm outside. I put my palm on the laminated rules card. Cold plastic. Dumb mercy of courier. Rule number 1. 2:11 a.m. Radio AM 1040 kHz. Volume 6. Rule number 2. Do not read aloud addresses written in blue ink. Rule number 3. Do not speak discontinued addresses. An address is a path. Saying it opens the route. Rule number 4. No hand-to-hand through secured doors. Use pass-through trays. Direct visitors to front office. I didn't say any of it aloud. I didn't put voice on my name. The slips kept coming. Soft against my boots. Teaching the floor a new word, one printhead stroke at a time. They learned forever. Relief lasted about as long as a held breath looks good in a photo. For one beat the building balanced. Belts purring, glue and ozone agreeing to disagree. Then it remembered it was a machine. On the wall, the incident screen bled its map out of fever. Pins cooled from red to something a human would call maybe. Doraville, Norcross, Midtown. Greens creeping back like grass through tire tracks. One pixel held on like a bad tooth. Old Peachtree, it pulsed to stubborn cherry. Slow as a heartbeat that won't take a hint. Over the docks, the sodium sulked brown-yellow. Over the stations, the fluorescents kept their clean wine. The PA, in its 2:11 habit, let the AM carrier breathe soft through the ceiling. The whole shop felt like it had taken a step and then remembered gravity. Darlene moved the way a person returns to an old story. She hauled a thick folder off the shelf, Winslow sharpied into corrugation. Set it on the stamp mat. She palmed the red undeliverable like a rosary that bites back. 1 form. 2. Then she lifted the brass-backed die that lives under the counter on nights like this. Postal inspection, adjacent nonsense they let us borrow when the world is literal, and set its jaws around a manila pouch. She leaned her weight. The press answered in the only language it knows. Thunk. Cold iron into warm paper. The sound walked up my wrist. She turned the pouch so I could read the bruise it left. Sunk deep enough to catch a fingernail, archive Winslow closed. Finality pretending to be law. The printers didn't care about law. They kept speaking in their thin, confident voices. Thermal tails curled at my boots, soft as pale grass. Return to sender, Noah Tran. Date fields rolled forward neat as a bored clerk. Tomorrow. Day after, day after. The time locked like a jaw, 2:11 a.m. Darlene slid the sealed pouch into a bin, thumbed the zoom on the incident board. Right into the bright thorn of old Peachtree. We'll get that taper down, she said. As if we was a person with a salary. Or we won't. The city learns what it learns. From under the console she fished out a phone. Retired EMS handset. Plastic the color of old teeth. Rubber corners chewed by years. A label maker strip clung crooked above the dead screen. Lynn, rig 12. She said it between us. Antenna stub pointing at nobody. Found it in property, she said. Retired with her bag. Doesn't turn on. Tone for pets and weather. Except when it does. I managed, Darlene, don't, and heard the tired in my own voice. She tapped the wall clock with a knuckle. The second hand hopped to 12. The stubborn bay clock at the dock agreed. Smug. 2:11 arrived like a bus that never breaks down. The EMS phone seized the line, not a ringtone. A channel opening on a pipe older than policy. Backlight bled up from the dead. Gray, blue, and stupid. No caller ID. Old Peach Street, Old Peach Street, Old Peach Street. Not road. Not road northeast. Not the one circled hard enough to dent the page. Street. Wrong, said with the map's confidence. Every 2 seconds. Sticky. Copper climbed the back of my tongue. I can fix that, I said, because I am exactly the kind of idiot rules get written for. You just did, Darlene said. Not kind, not unkind. She stamped another form, red flared on white. And so it asks for more. On the monitor, Old Peachtree brightened half a shade. Somewhere in the grid, a household 911 router flinched, reconsidered, then did nothing. The Siemens at my elbow sharpened its whir as if inspired to go nowhere faster. The thermal hiccuped. Back to rabbit's length. Committed to prophecy. ATTN, the boy on Old Peachtree Road, September 16, 2:11 a.m. The boy on Old Peachtree Road, September 17, 2:11 a.m. ATTN, the boy on Old Peachtree Road, September 18, 2:11 a.m. Dates marched forward without tripping. The title didn't. The system had picked mine the way a street picks a house after you paint the porch. Boy, I said. The word had splinters. Think of it like a buffer, Darlene said. Set the die again. Iron jaw kissed Manila. Thunk. Catch basin. When the runoff's heavy, the city floods less if somebody agrees to hold. Somebody, I said. You called it open. She rubbed her thumb across the embossing, as if she could sand closed until it meant something friendly. You closed it. There's a price for both. The phone looped its wrong promise. Old Peach Street. The last word chewed its tail into stree, line catching, letting go, catching. A mouth learning a hymn in the wrong language. Under my elbow, the field notebook pressed its ghost. Mom's circle around Peachtree Road Northeast. Yes, lived under my skin. I wanted to call the number back, stand on a roof, scream our directional into weather, drive every version of Peachtree and write no across the ones that lie. Instead, I put my palm on the laminated mercy we keep like a rosary for engineers. Cold plastic, courier pretending to be scripture. Rule number 1, 2:11 a.m. Radio AM 1040 kHz. Volume 6. PA bridges the tune. Rule number 2, do not read aloud addresses written in blue ink. Rule number 3, do not speak discontinued addresses. An address is a path. Saying it opens the route. Rule number 4, no hand-to-hand through secured doors. Use trays. Direct to front office. Rule number 5, visitors after hours, lives on the orange placard by the door. I said it from memory. I didn't say any of them. My tongue parked behind my teeth like a dog that's learned fences. On the map, a different wound flickered. Old Paces Ferry Road in a corner of 1984. Living as paper and decision. Not the same beast. Even if the city keeps its hazards in plurals. Atlanta writes the same word until it looks right. Sometimes it never does. Darlene capped her stamp, watched me like a power line in wind, expecting pretty sparks, betting against luck. You can quit, she said. People do. Parcels in Macon, passports in Tampa, they forget how to count to 13. What do, I asked, when it keeps calling? Keep the carrier on. Her mouth tried a shape, didn't get there. Don't say streets that aren't there. Don't promise on behalf of wood. The EMS phone kept being polite and wrong. The printers kept practicing tomorrow, so tomorrow wouldn't feel surprised. Glue and heat made their unlovely marriage in my nose. I looked down and saw the white Polaroid in its sleeve where I'd left it. Return to sender, Noah Tran. Showing through like a bruise you accidentally meet eyes with. I gathered a tale of slips into a banker's box. Stupid tidiness, ritual gravity. They let themselves be held. Put your address on a sticky, Darlene said. Casual as weather. Under the monitor bezel, the system won't have to work as hard. Muscle memory wrote it. All of it. The directional, the unit, the +4 that makes the mail feel seen. I didn't stick it, left it face down. As if that could make it less of a sigil. The dock sodium kept its sulk. The ballasts sang their thin, faint headache hymn. The incident pixel on Old Peachtree dimmed 1 degree. Brightened back, like a nurse testing the dimmer to see if I'd notice. Under our feet, the old wood that isn't here settled anyway. The way doors remember choices after you pull them shut. I stood. Knees popped. Printers purred. The EMS phone, satisfied with its loop, let the backlight go out like a story you don't get to hear the last sentence of. The Siemens camera block watched me. Clean glass. Little green LEDs steady. Lens spotless. Because I'm that kind of believer. I looked up into it the way a man looks into a steeple he doesn't believe in and still won't profane. I did not read the slips. I did not say my street. I did not even mouth it. I kept my mouth shut and let the machines talk. And they did.